So, good morning everyone. I'm Marybelle Barras. I'm Chief Risk and Legal Officer of DSS Plus. It's a consulting firm that focused on saving life and fostering a sustainable future. But tomorrow I will share more of my experience on transformative leadership. Today I want to share my experience and some thoughts linked with the work that I do with an association, a foundation in Switzerland that fights against gender biases at school. And Puja, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Marybelle. So I'm on a purpose to create communities of leaders who are inspiring, authentic, courageous across the age group. So I work with the Golden Triangle, which you're going to hear a little bit later, and with the leaders in the cup. So today, while we are going to speak, we are going to get in the experience of our own personal life as well as what I have seen in the corporate. Marybelle, what was happening for this particular topic, I thought, let me, just go to Google. And I was searching on, and then I realized, oh my God, all the exceptions are in my house. Because I'm a mother of two Gen Z, boy, 8.5-year-old, and a girl, 13 and a half. So before that, I want to know as well, what do you think? Why is this topic so relevant, and why should we even be speaking about it? What do you think?
Well, I think, as the speaker was saying, it's a very hot topic at the moment. It has been a hot topic for the past few years. And of course, as mothers, this topic is close to our heart, but this topic was also close to my heart before I became a mother, because we are all sister of someone, friend with someone, and we just want to make sure that, we can close this gender gap as much as possible. And there are a lot of discussions about talent shortage, right? And we spoke about it also yesterday, and we want to hire women, but we can't find them, or at least that's what some people say, even if sometimes I disagree with that statement. And then you also have some D&I programs in companies, and all these initiatives in reality have an impact later on in the life or the career of someone. And I think we can have a big impact already with kids at a younger age, because kids before a certain age, they don't have gender biases. It appears in reality relatively soon already, because they are influenced by the society, but the earlier that we can start, the more impactful it will be. And then they will grow up in adults that will be more aware of their potential biases, and that will, be more favorable to a more equal society. And for you, Puja, what do you think? Why is this topic relevant, and why is it important to you and for this audience?
I absolutely concur with you that when you're a 5-year-old, we really don't have any biases or anything. Why don't let's do a small experiment here. Let's imagine there are two characters, magician and nurse. Now, how many of you think magician would be a male? Please raise your hand, show me some. Hello, good morning. Show me how many of you thought magician to be a male. Alright, and how many of you thought nurse to be a female? Alright, I did this experiment with my children. And many children were there, and I was like, come on, let me do this experiment. And I was so excited. And I stayed in Singapore, and I had children of all different countries. And I was like, kids, there are two characters, nurse, magician. So whom do you think? And all of them said, 8.5-year-old, 13.5, and further, that magician is a male. Except the 5-year-old. So, from where is this coming in? This all is coming in not only from the classroom, but even from our parenting. Because the golden triangle, what I spoke about, is actually the parents, the Generation Z, the educators. And these patterns we see even in the corporate. In the corporate, when we speak about when I've been called about, hey Puja, I want you to come and do some inclusion work with us. I want you to reduce that club feeling. But to be honest, from where it's coming in? It's coming in from that 5-year-old. And you know, Marybelle, I want to share here something very interesting. As I told you, earlier I was doing some research at Google, and generally, we have been fed that women are more empathetic, more emotional. So I have this habit of writing love notes to my kids. So one day my daughter came and she said, Mom, I really appreciate you doing this. Please don't write anymore. We may get short of stationery. And I'm like, what? She is not even caring and being emotional about it? And my son there, he says, Mom, I really love this. Please continue. And he used to read for me as well. So there, two different, right? The girls are supposed to be emotional. Doesn't mean my daughter is not emotional. But what happens is we operate from this biases when we are speaking to our children or even in the organization. And I think that's why we really need to bring this to our attention so that this biases gets written in mind. Does it make sense to you? What do you think?
Absolutely. I think the starting point is to realize that each of us in this room has some biases, right? And even if we try to be aware of those biases and try to have a positive influence, if the starting point is to acknowledge already I might have some biases towards gender or other diversity topics, it helps already the conversation, it helps already when you are confronted with some situation or when you're trying to find some solutions. And as I was saying, those biases are present already at a very, very early stage, early age. So for example, with this association where I volunteer, we go into classrooms, several females volunteers. We go and we speak with the kids, and the kids are supposed to guess what is the job that we're doing, right? So we are dressed casually, and they ask us questions. Where do you work, in an office, outside, what do you do, etc. And they're trying to guess what is the job that we're doing. And then we leave the classroom, the kids decide, okay, this volunteer, she is whatever, and they find a job. And then when we go back into the classroom, we are dressed as we are dressed usually when we work. So the firefighter will have the helmet and everything on. The police officer will also have the uniform, lawyer, scientists, doctors, etc. And we do this with kids that are very young, can be 5 years or even younger, or teenagers. And the reaction is really surprising. Because often you have the kids, they will say, they are disguised, right? Some kids will just not believe that a woman can be a firefighter, a police officer, a doctor, a scientist, whatever it is. So it's important to start this conversation then with the kids, and then we stay in the classroom with the kids and they can ask questions about the job that we are effectively doing. And that's one way of engaging the conversation, and in reality not only about gender, but also about the diversity of the jobs that you can do, right? And they start thinking, what do I like? What could I do? How does it make sense what I'm doing at school and how I can use it later on, right? For example, for me, they love to ask me about how many languages do you speak? And you use it at work, etc., etc. So it starts from an intention to try to fight or minimize gender biases. But then in reality, it just opens a door, I would say, on life, and it pushes them to think and to start a conversation. So this is just one example of how you can, have an impact, and it seems like a small impact, or a small action. It just takes an hour. It's not that it's taking you 5 days, or it's a complicated program or thing to put in place. It's very easy. But it really has an impact, and it resonates with the kids. But then they go back at home, they start talking about it with their parents, they talk about it with their friends. Would you like to share further thoughts about, what is your concrete experience, and
and success stories or best practices on this topic?
Sure. As I even told you earlier when we were having a discussion on Zoom, like the practices what you have been doing is so deep and so powerful. But here I would like to, extend a little bit further. I mean, just forget even about the gender bias or any bias from where it starts. It all starts from our thoughts, right? Because we all know the thoughts are the one which is a starting point which leads to your behavior, which leads to the results. So we need to be intentional about the thoughts first. That how can we be intentional about thoughts? And as I told you, I'm going to weave a lot of examples from my personal life as well. And then I'm going to link it to the corporate and maybe few studies. So my son had his sports day, and he was like, I told him like, hey, I came to your sports day and I really organized, my day. And I was hoping he would say like, wow, Mom, thank you so much. But he said, you're supposed to do that. And I was like, why am I supposed to do that? He's like, moms are supposed to do that. And I was like, excuse me, do you see here only moms? And that's where he saw around, and I was thinking, hey, from where is it coming? Because I'm here, and right now, my husband there is managing all the house shifting without me. So I'm thinking, like, at our home, we are very much, we are not playing the role very specific to moms and dads. So how is it? From where is it coming? So he said, because my teacher in the school every time says, go home and show this homework to your mom. So it is assumed that mom are supposed to be doing this. And I was like, oh boy, that's really, we need to think about it. I discussed with my husband, and my husband was like, we had a dinner table and we were laying down, and I told him like, thank you so much, we'll be taking care of all the shifting with 2 kids while I'm off in Dubai. And so then we made a point to tell my son that it is the choice, what we exercise. It's not specific. We need to be sensitive because there are going to be a biological difference. And that's where I want to drive attention of everyone. That I'm not going to tell you like we need to completely drop in the bias or really bridge the gap, because there are going to be biological difference. But embracing those differences, how our culture, how our social factors are influencing. We need to be intentional about that. And that's where we need to nip this thought. And that time, next day, when my son was having a conversation with someone, he was like, telling his friends, hey, next time we should tell our teacher, it's not only mom who's supposed to do that, it's even that, it's the choice what they have. So that's what I want to tell everyone, that once we become intentional, so just imagine this boy and a girl who are going to go later on, they are going to go as much aware grown-ups who would be very intentional. So things like, resetting the mental modes, being careful about the kind of language what we use, because generally we say like, hello guys, listen to me, but that's where we are actually bringing in the bias. Why not just state like, ladies and gentlemen, or girls and boys, and even certain, like what you said, like policemen, fire brigade, all of this are been actually linked to those roles. Even when we say like nice and smart and intelligent, hardworking, usually you would have like girls saying like, I'm really very hardworking, and boys saying I'm very smart. So this is where we need to drop in. It all starts with those small conversations at home, those small conversations as educator and in the corporate, just being intentional, because we need to be sensitive, because there are going to be difference, but embrace it and leverage it.
Yeah, I fully agree with what you said. And, this topic about gender, often people take it to the extreme, right? There are things you should never know and things you should never do, and it needs to be in one way and in the other way. I like to see it as, we are human. We try our best, and with small acts, that we will make it better step by step. And also, when people try to bring a confrontation, right, it needs to be equal, or women needs to do the same thing, and other will see it differently by saying, no, well, I like it, actually, that model where mothers are doing in a way or another. And I don't see it as a confrontation. It's not necessarily either or. The benefit is just to start a conversation and try to give everyone the opportunity to decide by themselves. And also when, at work and in life, regularly I have people coming to me about those questions about diversity and other topic, and then they get frustrated, right? Why are they not aligned? It's so obvious because it's about values, it's about matters, about things that are close to your heart. And then people might get frustrated that, other people don't think exactly as they think. And I think if you put the conversation about it's either A or B, and I will convince you that it's A, you put a lot of effort where you might succeed, but it's a challenge to expect that the other one will necessarily fully embrace how you think. What I give as a tip is usually try to think what is the motivation, the driver, and the goal of that person, and then you find a way to bring them there. So if you have people that have financial targets, for example, in companies, right? It's not necessarily about saying you need to be a D&I champion, but you need to show that by doing this action, this initiative, etc., they will be able also to meet their financial targets, right? So I think in the classroom and later on, what we're trying to share is not necessarily there is one way of doing it. The examples, and the more we can do small actions and try to bring this consciousness about the topic, as you were saying, right? It's just sometimes just questioning the existing. Oh, really? Does it need to be that moms are doing it? Does it need to be that, I have this relationship with the teacher, or me as a boy, I'm expecting to be like this, or as a girl expecting to be like that? From my personal belief, I think that's how we will make progress.
Absolutely.
What do you think?
Absolutely. I was sharing with you today, earlier this morning, that it came as a research that, 2.5 times usually parents would type in and see that is my son gifted versus the girls. So yesterday when we were discussing, the topic was like, are girls intelligent than boys? And I was telling you like, hey, this itself is a bias here, and why this topic is, and I'm not going to be speaking about it. But in general, if we see from the scientific perspective, because it really got me curious, like why is it coming here that girls and boys? So generally we have like common level of intelligence, but later on in few things like verbal and verbal ability, you would see girls would do much better compared to boys. And I told you like there were many exceptions in my house itself. And it really got me further interested, and I actually looked around as well as a curious mother and as a curious speaker, that I need to get going and understand, like, is this really true? And what I found was that vocabulary or interest in the language has to do a lot even with your surroundings and with your surrounding of your people around, with your friends. There may be sometimes, that girls would lean more, but we are using this as a bias, and we approach it with a preconceived notion that girls, they are supposed to be good in language, they are supposed to be empathetic, and boys are supposed to be smart, energetic. So all those things we are already, classifying a lot. So having said that, again, Marybelle, what I feel is, with respect to intelligence, all of us are blessed with a general intelligence. It is actually how we are going to nurture it. It's going to really make a difference. And as you said, and we have been emphasizing over, again and again that being intentional is the starting point. Being intentional, all about your thoughts, all about the language, activating all your five senses, to be very honest. You know, when you activate all your five senses, that's where you're going to leverage this to another level, wherein you're going to actually close the gender gap. Because if we start right from the classroom, as those people, they grow up, they will be more confident. They would not do something to prove. Because, you know, another thought of mine, like girls are very hardworking, maybe because they have to prove themselves continuously. Be in the corporate, because of the kind of roles they play, like as a mother, as a wife, they think like, can I really be good enough? Can I really stand up to that? And that's why probably they are continuously in this thing of proving themselves, and that's why they are, you know, they get on to be hardworking. So if we are intentional about it, they will grow up as a more confident with a higher self-esteem.
Yeah, I fully agree. And you know, the examples that you were sharing about girls expected to be nice and boys to be active and smart. Even myself, I'm try to be rather aware about those topics and sensitive, and I catch myself or thinking this or saying something similar, right? Regarding colleagues, regarding kids, regarding friends, and then in that moment I'm just like, really? So as I said, we are just humans. The more we are aware of those topics, the more we can try to implement it, have really play an active role. And you know, we will never have the perfect situation, right, where the teacher will always be equal and will always say the same for a boy, the same for a girl. And I think that's fine. And there is also not the expectation that parents will do the same, right, and be this perfect role model. But with the more we can bring this topic in the classroom, have initiatives, I see it as we are opening a door to those kids, right? We are showing how life can be different than in the environment they grow up in, because it's difficult for kids to be what they cannot see. Right, they haven't seen a woman having, let's say, a more physical job, or a man having a job that is more associated with feminine aspects, let's put it that way. So the more we can bring diversity in their minds and concrete examples, role model, I mean, each of us can be a role model. We don't need to wait for the classroom, right? We can try to positively influence all the kids, the students, and the people around us. So I think sometimes people think, oh, we need to do a full program and put a lot of things in place. Well, already few things, small actions in everyday life can already have an impact. Each of us, right? When we go back to a normal life, we can do things with our families, with friends, neighbors, and it's sometimes just starting a conversation about what is my job, why do I love? I have another colleague that is doing this type of job, etc.
Absolutely, absolutely. Small actions, they really create a deep impact. So, you know, during pandemic, I started working even with Generation Z, because my coaches would always tell me, Puja, you talk a lot about pattern and you keep on saying, like, you know, patterns is something which drive, and don't you think it should start early? So you should start even working with Generation Z. And I was like, okay, I'm not traveling much. Let me start working with Generation Z. And we did reach like 1K plus students in like 21 plus countries. And there, you know, we were talking about creativity, about expression, about bias. And one of boy, he asked me, Coach Puja, in my home, the Cinderella and all the books, you know, the girls are always shown weak because they're, you know, when you read these fairy tales, you always see that the girls are weak and they have been waiting for someone to come and, rescue them or help them. So don't you think the book should be written in a different way? And I was like, yeah, it should be actually. And we had a discussion and I spoke to his mom, and his mom was like, really, I mean, actually, we have been reading all these books, and all these books somewhere, they show the girls to be looking at for someone who's coming and rescuing them, or they don't have power. And she actually drives the son, like, why don't you write a different book? Or why don't you come up with the different stories, or you encourage your friend? So even a small actions like not categorizing the color, pink girl, blue boy, or the books, or the choice of the clothing, like you are supposed to be dressed in a particular colors. If this is just left to the choice, while making them understand of the gender sensitivity and just leave it to the choice, wow, the world would be so beautiful, right? Because we would be elevating our thinking, and we would be operating and actually using and the power of choice. So yes, the small actions really make a deep impact. And after that, I became very conscious as a mother, like what kind of books I'm getting at home. Are they just showing one particular person as a hero, or how is it? And even when I would read, I would tell my kids, like, do you think there should be some change in the story, or which character do you identify with? So again, emphasizing the golden triangle. It's not only the responsibility of the educators, it's not only the responsibility of the parents, but it has to go hand in hand, because that's where the future young emerging leaders would be more intentional.
And I love what you said about the choices, right? I think it's absolutely fine if the girl wants to dress pink and just be the princess that will be saved by the prince. From my personal perspective, right, as long as she has the choice and knows that if she wants to be different, she can be different. And if she wants to dream about becoming an astronaut, she can become an astronaut and do whatever she wants to do. So I think we can bring a bit of hope to the kids. Let's be more intentional in our everyday life. And all together, we can be role models and have an impact in the life of the kids. Do we want to open the room for questions, or?
Yeah, we could do that. We would
if there are any
open it for a question, for a further discussion, and
Who's
for any thought process.
Cool. I gave you a little extra time. Who's up first at the microphone? It's there waiting for the first one to run. There's a couple hands. Who's going to go? Got to get up if you want to talk. That's how it works today. The name of the game. Exercise while we engage.
Enjoyed your talk. I had just a question. I'm undoubtedly from the heartland of Zen in Japan. That's why I wear the kimono, so if anyone's curious. My question is this. You mentioned that these small things that you can do to ensure the wholesome development of the child. It reminds me of Amir Khan's 2010 award acceptance speech in India, asking for Indians to adopt, a change where it isn't about telling a child to strive, to win, to beat, but teaching them to smile and to help, right? What are the small things that you mentioned that you can do as a parent? You mentioned that there's things you can do, and I was listening, what are those things? Is there a book? Is there a lesson plan for those things? How would you quantify them? Thank you.
I don't know if you want to answer. I think there are a lot of, thank you for the question. I think there are a lot of things that you can do. Just to jump on what you were sharing as an example, books. There are also books about, where the main character is a female and she's a superhero, right? So this type of books start to appear. You were also mentioning about being conscious about the words that you use, right? So it's about emphasizing when you see, for example, a woman that is having a more managing role or a professional career, or she's a police officer, and as the same way emphasizing when you see a man that is doing a job that is more seen as categorized as female in some environments, such as nurses, etc. Do you want to share other examples? I mean, sure. I could speak for hours, but...
Sure, that's a very interesting question. So thank you so much for that interesting question. Yeah, what I feel is once we are aware and intentional, I keep on going a lot about intentional, you will keep on hearing me in all my conversation. So once we make this our young generation very intentional about first understanding what's going on within them and what they are feeling. Now, how do I do it? I do it very simple. I'm going to give you my example, how I do with my kids and how I've got it into my program in personal leadership, what I do with Generation Z. So I just tell them, like, you know, the soda bottle and the water. So when you will move the soda, you know, it will freeze out, and whereas you move the water, it doesn't happen, anything. So I tell them, like, do you want to be a soda boy or a water boy or a soda girl or a water girl? So then they understand, because, you know, teaching them with some examples of first tuning in to their feelings. Another thing, you know, when I speak a lot about passive, aggressive, and assertive, so I tell them, like, passive is something like a tortoise who is there, but it goes in the shell, and aggressive is like a lion, and assertive is like an owl. So what do you want to be? So I try to use a lot of these examples with them, and yes, I have my own personal leadership program, wherein if you're interested, I would love to talk later on that. But taking on these examples and making them aware that it's okay if I'm not feeling happy, if I'm not feeling you know, up to it, I have to not really smile. It's okay to express, and we as a parent will not be really feeling embarrassed about it, like, hey, there is a guest, smile. No, it's okay, it's absolutely okay, let them be there. Because it's we actually who actually tell them, like, I would like a little bit stretch over here and tell you, like, you know, in entrepreneurship, you are considered to be a good entrepreneur if you have failed multiple times, because you have increased on your learning. But whereas in class, if you have not succeeded, you have failed, you have been categorized as a failure. So it is we actually who instill on them the shame and that feeling. So if we ourselves are okay with the children expressing themselves and getting them tuned to their feelings, I think that's the first step, what we can do as a parents.
And I like also what you said about the kids expressing themselves, right? Instead of teaching, I like to provoke people to think, right? The kids, the parents, and the teachers. So another exercise, for example, that we do with the foundation is that you ask the kids to draw a certain job. For example, please draw a police officer, firefighter. And in this type of jobs, you will see that most of the time they will draw a man, and for other types of jobs, they will draw a woman. And then based on the drawings, you don't have to say, oh my God, it's terrible, right? It's just starting a conversation. Why did you draw a male for this type of work, and why did you draw a female? And then by starting the conversation, for me, this is, you empower them to become a bit independent on that topic, and then they will maybe speak with each other, maybe speak at home, maybe speak with the parents, etc. So this is one way of how I like to tackle this topic.
Great. Next question.
Other questions?
Yeah. Come on up. There's a race to the mic today. Cool. People are awake.
Thank you so much. My name is Noba Tembo. I'm from the American International University in Kuwait. And this issue of gender and bias in schools is something I'm very passionate about. When I was a student, I remember in middle school and high school, teachers would start gravitating towards male students. And you would see them congregating around the board, discussing something, we don't know what it is. And we girls, we sit at the back, we don't know what they're doing. And I promise you, a lot of us dropped mathematics. Then I had a daughter, when she was in middle school, I moved her from co-ed to a girls' school. It's the best thing I could have done for her. And every year I have an event, Women in Science, in February. There is a campaign to keep women in STEM. In 2023, we still have a hashtag Stop the Dropout. What are we doing wrong?
Thank you for the comment and the provocative question. Do you want to answer? Should I start? Or?
I was just thinking, as she was putting this question, and I was thinking if we are going to be so vocal about, women, then I think males would say, like, come on, there would be an agenda, like, about how we can work towards reducing the, increasing the diversity or reducing the gap in that. So I think it would be, for me, I think it shouldn't be a male or a female thing. It should be more about inclusiveness. More about being open to both, because I think somewhere if we keep on focusing on one thing, there is going to be a gap at other place wherein they are going to feel left out. I mean, that's the initial thought what I had, but here I would add on.
Well, I like the fact that you mentioned being inclusive, and still I also want to acknowledge the fact that some women in some environments, they might want to have this opportunity, for example, in STEM, and the reality, it's hard, right? It's hard for a lot of factors, because the environment, they are in the expectations of other people, etc. So is there a magic solution? Probably not. From my perspective, it's the accumulation of different efforts. And will it be a hard way? Yes. I think so. So maybe already just acknowledging that it will be hard. You can do it, but it will be hard. And for me also a key of success is lifting each other, right? So, another woman, a speaker, a younger student that would like to do something and can do something, can we help that person? And maybe sometimes helping is just bringing confidence and just saying, look, you can do it. It will be hard, yes. Will you face people that will not be so enthusiastic or will not believe in you or will just speak and ignore you? Yes, in that case, just bring your own chair at the table, right? Don't wait for others to invite you or to put whatever system or initiatives in place. Just go your own way and make it happen. But I think the more each of us who are interested in the topic and who wants to bring this topic forward, we can try to do small things that seem to be small things, but the accumulation of small things multiplied by X people, it will have an impact. And then sometimes it requires just to, be more vocal and make a statement and just open the door for others. That's just how I would summarize it.
Mary, do you think it is even, that thing of trying to prove yourself consistently and not being compassionate towards yourself? Do you think even this can be somewhere, integrated
Yes.
to it?
On the other hand, I think in theory it's easy to say. In practice, I mean, each of us.
Yeah,
we
because I was just
face
thinking
this challenge
about
of
it.
wanting to prove ourselves regardless
Yeah.
of the gender. It's just that maybe for some of us it's more present, or sometimes it hinders ourselves to move forward, and others they might think it and just still do it. But
Great.
Yeah.
We have time for one more question. Anyone else?
Thank you so much for this conversation. My name is Maya, and I'm also a transformational, woman-centered leadership coach. And Puja, you mentioned that everything starts with thoughts, and I would like to just bring to our awareness the collective unconscious that stores so many limiting beliefs that we are operating as humanity. One of them is that leadership is associated with male gender and that the world is not a safe place for female and diverse communities. So my question to you is, and opening just a space for your thoughts, how can we create, as educators, safe space for female and diverse communities to actually step up to leadership? Thank you.
So I would go back to my corporate days. When I started in Asian Paints, the first day when I stepped in, I was the only lady. I was very gung-ha. Earlier I was very happy about it. Like, I'm going to be at a senior leadership level, and I stepped in Asian Paints, and it was in growth business unit. And I was been given a brief. This is a non-glamorous unit in Asian Paints, and I was like, why everyone is being saying that? And I stepped in. It was all males, and I was the only female. Now the thing out there is to feel yourself like, hey, I'm only female, I don't have anything, any friends out here, or actually to step in and to develop your network. Because as ladies, as females, what I have figured out is we usually don't take credit enough for the work what we do. Sometimes we are just developing the network within our own set of groups. It's important to actually have a wide network, and it is important to actually stand up for yourself and draw your boundaries, because if you're not going to respect yourself, no one else is going to respect it. And while there would be certain policies and processes, because I have worked in human resources, but it all starts with you. If you are going to think that I'm not going to, I read time's up, but I'm going to just take less than a minute. Otherwise, it's going to be a burning issue here.
Yeah, get it out,
So
girl.
it's going to be very important that we ourselves take the onus. Simple that we can't be sitting at the driver's seat and expecting to drive without the car keys in our hand. So that, I think, sums up all. It starts with us. We need to draw boundaries. We need to go out there, network, and we need to believe in ourselves and have that conviction that, yes, I'm good. If I'm not good, I'm going to be learning. It's okay. I mean, we would have made certain goof-ups here or not. It's okay. We are learning. We are exploring. And that's important, to be at peace and happiness with what you are. I hope it answers.
Give him a round of applause. Great fireside chat. Thank you, Puja. Thank you, Marybelle.